Ash was driving their Model 3 in Orange County, California. They just dropped off their mother at the airport and were on their way home. A white car turned onto the street just as Ash was passing, so Ash moved to the left a bit as the other driver crossed into their lane. This annoyed Ash since they were driving just under 45 miles per hour because of the car in front, so the white car was probably going at least 60 miles per hour when it sped into the intersection. As the white car sped through the intersection, a silver car on the other side of the road made an unprotected left turn. They must have misjudged the speed of the white car, crashing into them. The white car got pushed into a tree by the impact. We can even see the leaves shake from the hit. The car then spun around before it finally stopped. Ash pulled over, and when the police arrived, an officer sat in their car and watched the Teslacam footage, filming it with his body cam. Chris had left his Model 3 Performance parked outside of a bar near Dodgers Stadium in Los Angeles, California. Suddenly, he got a push notification that his alarm had been triggered. The alarm had been activated by a Dodgers fan who decided to jump on top of his Tesla. Chris rushed out, but the sports fan was already long gone. He noticed footprints all across his car, and when he got in the Tesla, he saw one of the footprints had caused a crack on his windshield. The vandal had also dented the corner of the trunk lid. Chris filed a police report and an insurance claim, but he has little hope that the vandal will be caught. Maybe this footage will help someone identify him. Chris told us it's hard to keep your car safe if you park on the streets of Los Angeles. He thinks that a parking lot or a garage is always a safer bet. He also said that after this incident, he's decided to cheer for the San Francisco Giants. Ben was driving his Model 3 on a highway in Zurich, Switzerland, when autopilot braked for the traffic that was piling up in front of him. The Skoda behind him also slowed down in time, but after that, the chaos began. The Skoda was rear-ended, and then cars just kept piling up, turning it into a huge multi-vehicle accident. Ben stopped, and thankfully everyone involved seemed to be okay. Unfortunately, the highway had to be completely shut down to clean up the carnage. Bernice was driving his Model Y in San Diego, California during rush hour traffic. While he was preparing to take an off-ramp, traffic in front of him started to slow down. A Camry behind him slowed down and swerved onto the shoulder to avoid rear-ending Bernice. But the driver behind it wasn't paying attention and hit their brakes very late. Fortunately, the Tesla's instant torque made it possible for Bernice to quickly accelerate away, avoiding getting rear-ended by the other vehicle. Richard parked his blue Model Y near a blue Model S. He asked us to say that blue is the best color. Have you noticed that Richard likes blue? So yeah, 2 blue Teslas. When he came back, he found a shopping cart resting against his car. He was annoyed that the cart demon had finally gotten to his car. Curious, he opened up Sentry mode to see what had happened, and he almost couldn't believe his eyes. It wasn't the cart demon after all. It was the Model S owner who'd been too lazy to put the cart away and left it next to Richard's Model Y instead. Richard was feeling pretty blue after seeing this, since he'd assumed that blue Tesla owners would look out for each other. Thankfully, there was no damage to his Tesla's blue paint. Blue! Peter was driving home after getting dinner with his wife. As he went to take an exit, a truck driver changed his mind about exiting and merged across 3 lanes, almost crashing into their Tesla. Peter wanted to contact the police and report the driver, but he's been unable to get a clear view of the license plate. Peter and his wife got married a week before this happened. Peter says they love watching Wham Baam Teslacam together and that he'd like us to give a shout out to his wife Sydney. Congratulations! Joe had stopped at a red light in San Diego, California when a truck pulled up beside him. When the light turned green, the truck driver immediately cut him off to get to the freeway on-ramp on the right. Fortunately, this happened while a cop was right on his tail and he got pulled over right away. Gotta love that instant justice. Joe sent us another story, and this time he was driving his Model Y on the freeway in San Diego, California. Some crazy guy walked from the highway center divider to the number 4 lane and stood there taunting drivers. The driver of a white car hit the brakes just in time to avoid hitting him, and Joe slowed down and swerved away from him. There were no news reports regarding this man, so as far as we know, he wasn't harmed. Mervis was heading down the highway to pick up his daughter from volleyball practice when he saw a car nearly run a stop sign before running into oncoming traffic. Even after they'd managed to stop, the driver decided to turn into oncoming traffic anyway. Mervis was able to avoid the accident, but the car next to him was hit head-on. Mervis called 911. When the police arrived, he gave them a copy of his Teslacam footage. They couldn't believe how many angles his cameras had covered. Old Geek was driving in Peterborough, Ontario, when a traffic light up ahead turned yellow. He slowed down to stop, but the driver of a Ford Focus flew into the intersection, striking a Volvo XC70. The Old Geek provided his name and phone number to both drivers and let them know he had Teslacam footage. He was later called by the Volvo driver and by the Ford driver's insurance provider, and he provided the Teslacam footage to both of them. Dr. C was driving his Model Y in New York City when the driver of a Honda in front of him first started to make a right turn, then hit the brakes and made a left turn instead. Dr. C braked hard in an attempt to avoid crashing into the Honda, but he couldn't stop in time and bumped into it. The impact knocked the front bumper cover partially off its mounting points and damaged the paint in several places as well. The Honda driver was super nice and apologetic, and they offered up all their contact info immediately, so Dr. C didn't even need to call the police. He's filed an insurance claim, and the outcome is currently pending. Diego was driving his Model 3 in Vancouver, British Columbia, when a baby squirrel appeared out of nowhere and ran in front of his car to cross the street. Diego slowed down, but the squirrel changed its mind and started running back to the sidewalk. He didn't have time to brake, so he did his best to avoid running it over. Diego wasn't sure if he'd missed it until he watched the footage. Thankfully, the squirrel survived. Diego isn't sure if autopilot reacted at all or if he's solely responsible for this evasive maneuver. Let us know what you think in a comment. Mac was driving his Model 3 on State Road 417 in Orlando, Florida, when a piece of trash flew out of a garbage truck. Mac couldn't avoid it, so it ended up smacking into his front bumper. There was no visible damage, and luckily, Mac thinks it was just foam or cardboard. Daniel was heading home after go-kart racing with his dad when they stopped at a traffic light. When the light turned green, he started to go, but then he heard tires screeching. At first, he assumed it was the Subaru BRZ that was behind him making all the noise. Then he looked to his left and saw an SUV heading straight at him. He smashed the juice pedal, and the SUV missed the car by inches. The SUV driver continued on, but Daniel had to pull over and take a breather after this close call. This submitter was up in Mammoth for a snowboarding trip and had parked his Tesla outside the hotel. While reviewing his Sentry Mode events the next day, he was surprised to see this one that had happened at 3 a.m. Don't keep food in your car, especially in bear country. Elon Musketeer, wait, what? Anyway, Elon was driving his Model 3 in Toronto, Ontario. As he approached an intersection with a green light, he was just about to drive through it when a police officer stopped him. At first, he didn't really know why he'd been stopped, but then he saw a convoy of black cars approaching up ahead. Some big shot was passing through in a convoy of 8 black trucks. I don't know, 4 seems like good security, 6 is showing off, but 8? Now that's just overkill.